Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. Money on Tap is where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. We look at all sides of the issues and bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. My name is Seth Cressman, and I'm joined here once again with John Ryder and Ben Brayshaw. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Seth.
Good morning, guys.
John, I love it how you got the. I'm gonna go ahead and point to Ben. Let him speak this time before I jump onto the microphone.
Yep, I'm not going to do that again. I've made mistakes in the past. I'm not going to make them again.
And I'll just talk right over you.
Yeah, I just point to Ben when I want him to talk. You talk, Ben, now.
You go. No, wait. No, me. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Also, you can find us at Facebook /3D Investing. Today, the title of our show is The Best Way to Inherit an IRA. And we've borrowed this title from an article of the same written by Dan Kaplinger on June 10th, 2018. So, Dan, thank you for this great submission and letting us go ahead and use it here at Money on Tap for some of the data that we're going to be pulling out and talking about. It's a big topic, folks. It's huge, we're gonna bigger than probably anybody realizes once we start getting into the magnitude of some of the numbers of what that's going to look like.
When you think about, best ways to inherit an IRA, I mean, we could probably sell CDs on this for kids to give to their parents for Christmas.
I'm sure we could do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could do that. But, really what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about that proverbial...
It's like a lump of coal in the stocking, isn't it?
Mom and Dad, hey, this is how I want to inherit this.
Hey, that's really a conversation that no one likes having. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. And this topic will make some people pretty uncomfortable. Maybe not the topic will make them uncomfortable, but here we are. We're going to be talking to you folks today about talking with your parents about things that aren't just all that exciting, about the money that you're going to inherit, or perhaps the money that you're not going to inherit. Talking about family wealth with children, family members, it can be tricky. In fact, sometimes it's not talked about much because I think, people don't really want to talk about their money. They don't want to talk about the money that they're going to pass on to their kids. But we're going to spend some time talking about that today. And I think it'll be a really helpful show. Are you going to
host a counseling show here, John, on how to talk to your parents?
We can do that after. Yes, absolutely.
I was going to say there's the other side of the coin is some parents like to talk about how that's just not going to happen.
Oh, we have those clients for sure.
You're out of the will entirely.
But hey, in fact, you know what? Speaking about out of the will, we're going to talk. Our money in the news topic that we're talking about has to do with.
John, you're not in my will.
I am not, Ben. That is very disappointing because I was before. I saw it. I signed off on it. Ben signed off on it, and I'm sad about that.
You're out.
I am such a sucker for
is Seth in the will?
Make sure John's okay because now I have to add him in my will.
Sorry, I'm bound by confidentiality. I can't share that.
Okay. Well, it's very disappointing that you let me know that on live radio today. So thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So now it is time for Money in the News. So our Money in the News segment today is actually some old news, but some pretty interesting news. So the whole idea with today's Money in the News segment is the fact that there are some unbelievable inheritance stories that we're going to talk about today. And this sometimes they're crazy, they're random, they're shocking. Well, this first one here. There's this guy. I'm going to do my best to pronounce this name. Luis Carlos de Noronha Cabral de Camaro made an unusual distribution.
That wasn't accurate, John.
That was my best. If you'd like to, Ben, if you'd like to second,
so far off.
If you'd like to go ahead and do that,
oh my
for me.
word.
You just started saying words. You're like, I think there's another N and an M in there. And
Well, I would like one of you guys to go ahead and say it for me.
We don't have time. We got to keep this show moving, John.
So as I was saying, let me say it again. Luis Carlos de Noronha Cabral de Camara made an unusual distribution of his money after his death. 70 people listed in Lisbon, Portugal phone directory were contacted out of the blue after his death to be told he had made them his beneficiaries. So that's even more shocking news to them than it was for me when I heard that I was out of Ben's will.
Yes, I chose 60 strangers.
Yes. So check this out. So they did not even know him. It was kind of a totally eccentric thing to do. And it was chosen out of a phone directory. So this guy must have not had many people that he loved in his life. That is for sure. Oh, my goodness.
I love the social experiment here is what I think
I would
is
love the social
awesome.
experiment if I was one of the people in a phone book.
Right. Well, yeah, but I think this is there's a few of these that kind of do this. People are just wondering, like, well, I wonder what's gonna happen if I do this. What are people gonna do? I would love to see like who follows up with this and interviews these people to find out. That would be a great movie, wouldn't it? Like to follow like their lives as they transition from wherever they are to this new reality of having all this money just immediately, and how each one of them kind of deals with it.
Well, this is like one of those things where you're like, that guy inherited all that money, or this woman, and it's like, and they're like either in our humanistic eyes undeserving, or why do they all just get the luck, and then there's the next door neighbor is like, I mean,
one of them's got to have like won the lottery twice out of that sample group.
Well, look at story number 2 though. Story number 2 is 2 homeless brothers who inherited more than 100 million euros. So these guys were penniless. They were down and out. They actually lived in a cave outside of Budapest, Hungary, and they sold scrap that they found on the street for pennies. So now both of them and a sister who lives in America inherited their grandmother's massive fortune after a life of poverty. And they said, we knew our mother came from a wealthy family, but she was a difficult person and had severed ties with them, and then later abandoned us, and we lost touch with her and our father until she eventually died. They learned of their good fortune after homelessness. Charity workers in Hungary were contacted by lawyers handling the estate of their brother's maternal grandmother, who died recently in Germany. Under German law, direct descendants are automatically entitled to a share of any estate that would pass from their dead mother to them. How shocking is that? Kids living on the streets, basically, and then
they were living in a cave. They were living in a cave.
So it was a nice cave then. It wasn't.
They had shelter.
Come
on.
Either way, that is so awesome. Like to see. I mean, abject poverty to wealth.
It's like
incredible.
that movie Trading Places. Remember that?
I mean, it's so sad that their relationship with their family was so strained, though.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, their sister was like sounds like the whole family just kind of was like we're done. I don't know if they had any communication with their sister or not, but she was, Anyways, it was a cool story.
Okay, so I have a story that I'm going to bring up that's not even in this article. So I knew this woman in New Hampshire who had accumulated a bunch of land over time, a lot of land over time. And everyone kind of thought she was poor because she lived in a small, very small section of a house that she rented. Turns out, and towards the end of her life, and I was just talking to her, and she was like, I don't care that I don't, I have a nephew that I'm going to give the money to. And that and the government. Now, it turns out that her nephew hadn't talked to her for many, many years, and then the last conversation that she had with him was not a good one. She was not very happy. I guess he had chosen to go into a different kind of lifestyle than she was comfortable with, and she cut him out. When she died a year and a half later, all of her $10 million went to the government, all of it, and that's where she wanted it to go. Very strange. Very, very odd. Polish family. Yeah, no, actually, wow. Lithuanian family. Yeah, very odd. Very odd. So that was just departing from the article that we're talking about.
Well, the way that you started talking about that, first of all, it sounded like we were going to get like a fairy tale, like some kind of Little Red Riding Hood.
That is the way I tell stories.
We all inherited that money. Just remember, we all inherited it.
Yeah.
And
that's
second
why
of all,
our government's in good shape now.
This is a really heavily scripted show, John, and I think you need to submit those editions prior to us airing. So
yes.
Next time, just make sure that you get the proper channels in there.
Yes. Thank you, Seth. Thank you. All right. What's next?
The student that inherited almost €1 billion from an uncle that he hadn't seen from a decade. Now, is that why? Did you just take that story and turn it into your own? Except for you made it a very sad ending.
I did not. I did not do that.
What is wrong with you?
How long do you have for me to tell you what's wrong with me?
Yeah, basically that's the typical story that I think we get is like the lost family member that inherits €1 billion from an uncle lost
He became one of the richest men in Moldova. This guy that inherited all that money from his uncle. Maybe that says, maybe that tells you something. You don't have to really see your
Yeah.
family that much if you want to get money. I mean, kinda worked out.
It's the next one that I've been waiting for is the richest woman in Asia that gave away her multi-billion US dollar fortune to a feng shui master in return for a promise of eternal life.
That was very nice of him to promise that, though.
Oh, she should have called me. I mean, we would have hooked up the real deal at least, you know?
So this lady, she was 69. She died of cancer in 2007. She signed over her vast fortune to this guy she had met. She changed her will in 2006. So she died in 2007, but she changed her will in 2006 in order to leave everything to the feng shui master, voiding a previous will written 4 years earlier that left the fortune to her family and to charity. With no children of her own, she wrote a new will in 2006, 2 years after her ovarian cancer was diagnosed, making 48-year-old Chan her sole beneficiary. Oh, my goodness. You think that makes sense, Ben?
No. But I will say that we see these changes in the wills. I mean, we see that stuff all the time. I mean, how many clients have you had come in and like, we have people who diagnosed with cancer and all of a sudden, you know, what they want to do for beneficiaries starts changing across the board. And I always like kind of shiver when that stuff happens because I don't want to be in the middle of some massive lawsuit.
I had that happen. It was 30 days before she passed away, and we had witnesses and everything. We actually videotaped it all because it was that crazy. And it was several $1 million, 2.5. Yeah. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, every time we see beneficiary changes due to illness, it's kind of like this kind of surreal moment of like, am I going to have to deal with this later on? And that I think beneficiary should be set up when you're of 100% sound mind. And some people
But sometimes things change towards the end of your life too, and you think maybe you start thinking about what becomes more important.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, you know what? That was a family. I'm thinking of the particular situation. I'm thinking about, you know, for years and years and years, I helped my family out. And you know what? Here I am the last 6 months of my life. I'm dying. No one ever comes to see me. I gave them everything. I gave them everything throughout the years. I gave them a lot of money. This is this particular situation I'm thinking of. And my family ignored me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send my money to the people that cared about me.
Yeah. I think that's different, though. I mean, I've just seen some kind of crazy stuff happen.
Yeah.
And this is like one of those things.
Yeah.
Like she comes down with cancer, and I'm going to.
I love my feng shui master.
Give me eternal life, and I'll pay you anything.
That's right. Isn't that crazy, though? So sad. So sad.
Well, this is kind of a cute one. I like this one. This guy, he was 82 years old, sat at this waitress's section all the time. That was his favorite waitress. She's a nice girl, reported over in Cleveland. He left her over $500,000.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, so amazing.
He had no heirs.
But you know what? She treated him well. And, you know, I'm sure there's tons of waitresses across the country, the world, that do treat their people well, but she probably had no idea that this was going to happen. And so very cool. Very cool.
So the Argentine maid who received $40 million after basically a judicial battle that involved a corpse's robbery.
Oh, boy.
That's how badly they wanted to make sure that the estate stayed in place. Like this person was not included. They robbed.
Well, they found somebody else that she was related to verify the gene pool.
The DNA.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So this is probably by far my favorite, you guys, is the teenager who inherited an island with buried
Tell us
treasure.
about that.
This is horrible. You like this one the best? Are you kidding me?
I think that's awesome. Yeah, so Josh wasn't so close to his grandfather, really. He met him just a handful of times in his 17 years.
Weird.
Basically, this kid gets inherited a 36-acre island with more than 80 acres of farmland outside of that as well. But there was something unexpected in the will, a detail of an antique jewelry and loose gems contained in a thermos. No indication where this was, but some family members remember an oblique reference as the father passed away of Treasure Island when she was a child. So now there's a hunt to find this thermos.
Still hasn't been found.
Wait.
That's like a curse.
So this reminds me of another movie. What was that one? The Holes, where the kids were in that like. Remember they were digging.
They were digging.
Digging
holes. I think is the name of it.
Never heard of it.
Never. Oh, that's a good family. That's a good family movie.
It's called Holes.
Hey, while we're just gonna start talking about whatever we want to, whenever we want to, John, I'm gonna bring in a movie I saw recently this last weekend called "We Bought a Zoo," or "So We Bought a Zoo."
Oh yeah.
It was It was fantastic. Great family movie, you guys. And never heard of it. It's
Are we
recent
doing
with
film
Matt
reviews
Damon.
now? Is that what we do here on the radio? Okay.
Hey, listen, I want to talk about these last two that I thought.
Oh,
were
okay.
unbelievable.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
The one is the guy who left the money to whoever had the most children over a 10-year period post his death.
I don't think that would be
Called it
legal.
the Great Stork Derby.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this one's like a super bummer. So this guy, he's 67. He's living in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. And the police are trying to chase him down to let him know that he inherited $6 million from his ex-wife. Not a bad sign of,
not a bad day.
He thinks he's a homeless guy. He thinks the police are chasing him.
For alcohol use and drug use?
Alcohol and drug use. So he goes running, never to be found and never to have known he had inherited $6 million.
He disappeared without a trace.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So
Wow.
that's why we call these stories unbelievable, because they truly are unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're listening to Money on Tap. We're going to take a quick break. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Hi, my name is Seth Crustman, partner with Brayshaw Financial Group and one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. One of the biggest concerns and largest expenses people face today is taxes. Without thoughtful planning, taxes can destroy future retirement dollars, eliminating the possibility of a timely retirement or dreams of what you want retirement to look like. If you're like most people, you're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. Will my income be enough? Will rising taxes force me to give up my dreams? How does inflation factor into all of this? These are real concerns, and you're not alone. Putting a plan around your financial future is what we do. If you have questions when it comes to your financial security, and if you're looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group, 855-226-8551. It's time for you to start getting answers to your questions. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, Brayshaw Financial has offices across the country. We'd love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation to meet with us. Call us at 855-226-8551. 855-226-8551.
More Money on Tap in just a moment. On this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, John Ryder introduces an interesting story about a lawsuit that wraps up with an incredible outcome.
Ex-Chipotle manager accused of stealing $626 given an $8 million settlement for wrongful termination. New York Daily News reports that this manager, her name was Jeanette Ortiz, she was accused of stealing $626 in cash out of a cash register from the safe of a Fresno, California Chipotle Mexican grill. She was very quickly fired for this blatant thievery and justice was served. Right? Well, not quite. While her superiors maintained that the act was caught on tape, they failed to provide this purported surveillance footage and claimed it was destroyed. Frankly, claiming your main piece of evidence was eradicated isn't exactly the best legal argument in a courtroom. They accused her of something, they couldn't prove it, and now she is going to be retired for the rest of her life with no worries in the world at all.
Honestly, this is what's like bizarre about our legal system or wrong about our legal system. It's like, did she really steal it? And then she got $8 million. It's like, this is what the problem is with our system. We're encouraging more people to create more lawsuits. It's like the cup of coffee. Everyone knows the cup of coffee that's spilled on the person at McDonald's and they won millions. It's supposed to try to make you whole. No one ever is whole from anything, and so to overcompensate or only exacerbates the problem we have in our legal system.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth, Ben, and John.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You know what we're talking about today? Well, what we have been talking about so far is a lot of crazy inheritance situations. But it's going to lead us into, I think, very nicely, John, lead us very nicely into our topic, which is the best way to inherit an IRA.
Is there a bad way to inherit an IRA? I think there probably is. So we'll talk about that, too.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So millennials are also known as, Gen Y. They followed the Gen Xers, that's us, and the millennial generation have, their birth years starting in early 80s and ending in mid 90s, early 2000s. So, the millennial generation actually stands to inherit $30 trillion in assets from previous generations. So this will be the largest wealth transfer of any generation that we've ever seen. And
there's this company, Seth, called Natixis. You've heard of them before?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so this company, they did a U.S. investor survey, and they basically were saying here that 70% of young people expect to get an inheritance, while only 40% of the parents actually plan to leave anything for their children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big gap if you think about it. But, as we were saying earlier, a lot of people don't really want to discuss this whole money thing with their kids. I think a lot of people just don't want to confront the reality, the fact that someday they're going to die. And I think another factor may be that parents don't want to have their kids be aware of the fact that they could inherit money because it could hinder their motivation. Maybe if you're going to get a bunch of money from mom and dad.
Should you really be going on that really nice, round the world tour?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem a little irresponsible of you.
Or it could be he's like, I'm not really caring about going on to school because I don't really need to make much money because guess what? I'm going to be pretty well all set. I guess it's one of those topics, though, that, when it comes to money and talking about it, we don't really want to, you don't bring that up after Thanksgiving dinner or, around Christmas after you've opened the presents. Let's talk about what I'm really going to get, not what I just got.
What family did you grow up in? That's what we're always doing. We're always like, hey, Mom, Dad, bring out the will. Let's do
let's do a reading of the will.
Reading it every year. But you know what? There's probably families that do that all the time. Who knows? So
some people are just, they're reading the Christmas story and, some people are reading their will.
That's terrible.
Oh, gosh.
I think that's incredible, the discrepancy. Like we talked earlier, mentioned in the show that the numbers are unbelievable when you talk about $30 trillion in assets that are going to be transitioning. And, nobody wants to talk about, passing. It really is a subject that everybody, for the most part, starts to sidestep around. And
can't imagine why.
We even do it anytime we're sitting down. It's like, all right, we're going to have to talk about some life insurance. All right. Nobody wants to talk about this subject, but we're going to get it over with now.
I think with all of this, these no one wants to talk about death, obviously, but it's a complicated conversation that we have to engage in regularly, from brokerage accounts to the insurance world to estate planning and wills and stuff. I think some of the facts are staggering when you really break it down. But I got to tell you, people walk through our door constantly and don't have a will or a trust.
I do believe this. I do believe that people think when they start talking about these things,
they're going to die.
They're going to die, and there's absolutely no logic with that. But for some reason, and I've heard that, and I remember this one guy in New Hampshire who's since moved, but he would say things to me like, "I don't believe in insurance. I don't believe in insurance." And it's kind of funny because it's not a belief system. Insurance exists, but he really thought that if he talked about it and planned for it, then that eventually would happen. But the fact is, we all are going to die. But I don't think it has anything to do with when we're talking about it.
Interesting stat that you just talked about there is like how many people don't have wills, and statistically 44% of boomers still don't have a will. 44%.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, but 57% people don't think they're going to have any money to pass on, so they're saying, well, why waste the money on a will because I'm going to spend it all anyways.
Well, that's true, because then you're right. The 35% plan to spend whatever money they have left on themselves. But, I mean, there's always the what if scenario. Like, what if I don't make it to that day where I've just completely cashed out?
John, I mean, Seth, we have people when they walk through the door. I've talked with, sit down with people, and they're like, you know what? If I die and there's money there and someone's got to figure it out, well, let it be their problem. I don't want to worry about,
make them work for it.
Yeah, like, it's as if like, and it's like, well, it could be more efficient, and you save a lot of money that you've worked really hard for to pass on to your family or friends or charities or whatever. And they're like, I don't care. I'm not going to care because I'm not going to be here.
Yeah,
that's true. And there's, no judgment here if that's the plan, if that's the way that things. It's just sometimes it's interesting to get all these different perspectives that we get a chance to, get a bird's eye view of. And we have different perspectives ourselves. I know that when we're talking about our own families and our own family's plan, John is different from Ben, is different from me in how we're planning, what our intentions are. And so, all across the board, no judgment, people, just interesting to find out what's the numbers are statistically, how common a lot of us have made decisions about our future plans and around our money and our deaths.
I think one thing that, that's not monetary around doing proper estate planning and doing these documents. I know this isn't really the intent of our show, is preserving the family unit. Because if you leave this thing just,
not buttoned up.
Yeah, not buttoned up, you're going to create a huge amount of strife and stress inside the family unit. Even if it's just, even if you don't have an I love you will, as they call it, to your spouse, the child, I mean, it's going to be frustrating. It's complicated. And if you don't make this thing neat and clean, it's just going to create unnecessary problems inside your family. Who cares how much money they do or don't get? If you don't want them to,
they all hate each other after you're gone. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you really accomplish, inside that? So I think that's the non-monetary thing to focus on in this area.
But the thing that really blew my mind about this survey is the fact that 70% of millennials believe that they're going to get an inheritance, and there's a big gap there. Only 40% of their parents plan to leave one. So there's a lot of kids out there that aren't getting what they think they're going to be getting later on.
But I think people, they say, I've had how many people? I mean, you guys probably have another 6 people walk through the door and say, I want to die spending my last dime.
Yes, yeah, I've heard that.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the truth is we can't plan to spend your last dime on your death because we don't know when you're going to die.
Yeah.
So
big unknown. It's very difficult.
Yeah, so there's usually always going to be money left over on some level, even if it's not a lot. So,
yeah. Another thing that was interesting was that a significant portion of the boomers are expecting their retirement to come from their kids.
Their .com millionaire kids.
Yeah. There's a reverse flow.
I'm on that too. That's my plan.
That's my idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Seth. You're my new planner. I like it.
Well, also, the boomers have different expectations. Like the 65, is the average expectation for a boomer to retire. But the millennials don't plan on, going past 59 and a half. Like they already know that's the demarcation in the sand for their qualified accounts is that 59 and a half before they can start turning that cash flow on without the 10% hit to the tax base there. But they're also thinking that there's going to be those large sums of money flowing their direction as well. I think is part of their retirement planning process.
What am I? Gen X?
Yeah,
you're a Gen X.
I'm a Gen X, right?
So your kids are.
I don't see myself retiring.
Yeah.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, from that standpoint, we meet millennials all the time. We're like, well, I can't wait to get out of work and just go live my life the way I want to live it, which is great. But, it's sad because I look at it and say, you're not doing something that you really love.
Yeah. No, for sure. When it comes to inheriting money, the main way that money is going to transfer from one generation to the next is through people's IRAs. And if you think about it, it's because IRAs usually are people's largest asset. So people for many, 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 many years will put money aside into their 401k.
Right.
And that 401k, obviously, when you retire, you take that money and you typically will roll that over into an IRA. It becomes their biggest asset. And this pot of money really is something that sometimes people spend. But interestingly enough, sometimes people don't spend it. We do see people that have money in this largest asset they never want to spend it.
Yeah, they're stuck just taking their RMDs. They're like,
well, yeah, at age 70 and a half, they're forced to take those distributions, even though they don't necessarily want them. And we know why they're being forced, right?
people listening to the show are probably saying, why wouldn't they want that distribution? And they're like, usually by the time you're really not interested in the RMDs, it's because you still have a pension, maybe you have your Social Security, you have your non-qualified assets. But the thing is people are looking at it saying, and I said non-qualified, but that's the after investment taxed, money.
Yeah.
And what happens is they've got income coming from everywhere else that they don't want to create an additional tax bracket. So they try to minimize their IRA distributions as much as possible. But then they're cornered by the government at 70 and a half saying, you've got to take out at least this much.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, guys, just regarding
cornered by the
RMDs.
government?
Yeah, because we get that
all the time.
That certainly is the case. So here's what happens, for those that don't know. If you have an IRA and you're under 70 and a half, well, you're in a good position. You don't have to take money out of it. However, when you do hit that 70 and a half year time frame in your life, then basically what the government forces you to do, they take a look at how long they expect you to live. And if you're at 70 and a half right now and your expected age would be 90, basically they're going to take 20 years there and divide your IRA up evenly over those 20 years, and you have to you're forced to take that money right out. But Seth, why do they want you to take your money out? What's the big motivation for them?
Well, it's taxed as your traditional income.
Yeah, and so you have
standard
taxes
income
on
level,
on these dollars for years and years and years. We have trillions of dollars sitting in IRAs and 401ks. And so
what's been happening in the background is that, I mean, this is America's largest asset that's been growing. For the most part, is people have been putting the money away in the 401k because, hey, it makes sense. It's free money. They're going to contribute. I'm going to contribute, and I'm going to take advantage of that. But then on top of that, we continue to shelter that money into that 401k, not paying taxes today, or the IRA as well. And that's the point: is we're not going to pay taxes today. We're going to grow the money tax free, but then on the distribution of that, right? I mean, it's not there's Time to Pay the Piper was one of the shows that we did a while ago, which was all based on, if you want to reference a show really based off that income distribution at this 70 and a half level and the assets that grow and those qualified accounts. And that's the whole point, is eventually, the government's given us this kind of freebie here, and now they're going to get it back, and they're going to get it back at a taxable level that works for their dollars now.
Yeah, it may have been a small amount going in years ago, like we talk about often, but it becomes a much, much larger portion and just a much larger taxable portion. So there is some very big incentive for the government there to force you to take those RMDs.
Well, I think when it comes to IRAs, and we've chatted about this a lot on the show, but I think you need to understand that it's not just about your 401k when it comes to investing. And I think we're trying to constantly educate people, because when all you have is your 401k or your IRA assets to retire off of, you're literally held hostage by the government when you take every distribution on what they decide the tax rates are going to be.
Because that can change, and we all think all of us sitting around here, and probably people listening to us today, believe that we're going to see taxes going up in the future because of crazy spending and because of the inability to be able to cut back on taxes and this and that, and it's just
and so when it comes to diversification, which everyone kind of has the idea or understanding for the most part, diversifying my investments and so forth inside my 401k. Maybe they choose large cap, mid cap, small cap. Maybe they're choosing a bunch of stocks or whatever they're doing. Right? They're diversifying and trying to get as much breadth inside their, inside their allocation so that they can minimize their risk. But the thing is people are not giving credit to the tax risk that they own for tomorrow.
That's exactly what that is, a tax risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're really breaking this down, understanding diversification inside how you allocate or invest your assets in which tax code, whether it's the before tax or the after tax category, those are things to consider inside your scenario, which, obviously runs you into a Roth IRA conversation very quickly. Do I do...
Or backdoor Roth. There's some really slick ways, folks, that if you have a 401k that allows in-service distributions, you can really do some significant movements towards getting into a tax-free investment vehicle, call it a backdoor Roth type of a program. Hey, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Brayshaw, one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. If you have questions when it comes to your retirement and are looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group. In today's volatile stock market, we can help you plan to find your successful retirement solution. Am I saving enough? Am I saving into the right places? Do my investments match my appetite for risk? Do I have a tax strategy that is going to help me keep more of what I earn? How can I maximize my Social Security income? If you are like most people, you are getting closer and closer to your retirement and may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. If you're in retirement, you may be wondering, am I maximizing my income while preserving my estate and caring for my family? We talk about all things financial in what we call three-dimensional investing, putting a plan around your financial future. If you feel that now is the time to start getting the answers to some of these questions for your own situation, give us a call at Brayshaw Financial Group at 855-226-8551. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, we have offices throughout New England and across the country. We would love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation just to meet with us, and we welcome you to our office. Call us at 855-226-8551.
More Money on Tap in just a moment. On today's Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Seth Cressman sends us a warning. There are no guarantees, and even the best companies who promise to take care of us in our retirement years may not always come through. It's up to us to have a plan in place for our financial future, one that goes above and beyond what we may have been promised.
What's happening in some of the U.S. cities like Detroit, Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, they are claiming bankruptcy. They have pension obligations of $1.23 billion. These are areas, I think, in most of our minds, most of our thinking that we say this is going to be okay. We kind of let down our guard and we think, okay, well, we've done the work. We're trusting these organizations. We're trusting these systems to do what they said they're going to do and to perform. The truth is that we deal with this all the time. We can't say guaranteed here on the air. Like, oh, we can't talk about something and say, well, there's a guarantee that goes with that. There's areas that we try to even work in to try to create some security as well. But these are massive organizations that have just told people that we're going to take care of you. And you know what? It's lulled people to sleep. A generation of people that are being lulled to sleep with guarantees. I mean, it makes me angry. It does make me angry and upsets me to find out that these people are ultimately lied to. And how do they recover when they're 65 years old and go from $45,000 a year of what was considered guaranteed income the rest of their life down to, $18,000, $25,000. How do you do that?
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth, Ben, and John.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. My name is Seth Cressman, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And notice how I didn't introduce John or Ben at that time, but they're here still.
Yep, still here.
Ready, waiting. We're talking about, the best way to inherit an IRA. There's $30 trillion right now in the IRAs, or the qualified accounts. Now, believe it or not, sooner or later, we all know the two things that are guaranteed in this life are death and taxes, right? Not the favorite topics that we like to bring up or talk about, but the fact is that there's going to be a lot of wealth transferring from these IRAs and these qualified accounts to beneficiaries. Those are what are designated after people pass having IRA assets. They're pretty much there's the opportunity to pass probate in that by selecting beneficiaries. One of the things, folks, just a footnote here: select a beneficiary. Do not put the estate as a beneficiary. Just a little estate planning 101. because then it just feeds it all back, all that hard work that you put into your IRA and your IRA assets, it feeds it all back into probate and into the system if you do that. Select some beneficiaries past probate so that just doesn't have that confusion or those that process get in the way of them getting those assets that you would like them to have. But what's going to happen? What happens for the beneficiary after the IRA owner passes? And it's different depending on who you are.
Yeah, I was going to say, it really depends upon who the beneficiary is. So really the most common way that IRAs get passed down, they usually get passed over, I should say. Basically what happens is, for those who are married, the most obvious and the most common person named as the beneficiary is typically the person's spouse, and that's how you hope it would be. And if that's not the case, actually, when you're actually filling out an application, the spouse has to sign off on it if they're not the primary beneficiary.
Depending on the state,
yeah. So that can be important. So the rules governing IRAs really make it simple and effective for surviving spouses, because all of the spouse has to do, the surviving spouse has to do, is to open up an IRA in their own name, and then the money can be rolled over, and the assets can be rolled over. And the nice thing about that too, guys, is the fact that there's really no taxable implications there when it comes to the IRA, because the money just transfers from IRA to IRA. And so, but once the money is in the surviving spouse's name, it's treated just like any other IRA. So that surviving spouse, their age will determine when penalty-free withdrawals can be made, meaning that if you inherit the IRA when you're 58, well, you still have a year and a half to wait until you can pull the money out tax-free. And also, it also dictates as far as the RMDs that we're talking about, that require minimum distributions. So if you're over 70 and a half, well, you need to start taking those distributions right away. So how does that change when it comes to passing the money on to the kids?
Well, so we were, when it comes to kids and inheriting it, it's complicated because there's all these rules about the timing in which you do the breakup of the assets. So, one of the things is the kind of the before and after, and kind of that landmark fulcrum date of controversy is December 31st of the year following that person's death.
So let's say this. Let's say I pass away, right? And today. Right. Okay. So I pass away today. So we're in June now. Okay.
18.
So 2018.
Yeah.
Right. So nothing has to be done if I'm a child of the benefit, like I'm a child beneficiary, basically, or anybody other than a spouse beneficiary. Nothing has to be done until when?
December 31st of 19.
Right. And then at that point, there's really a couple of different choices that can occur. One is that the beneficiary can take the money out of the IRA in a lump sum. Now, think about this. There's a couple downsides to that. Taking that money out in a lump sum can really create
it's just tax suicide.
Yeah, it can
tax suicide.
And depending upon the amount, if you got $1,000, probably no big deal. But if you have $500,000 or $1 million, that could be a huge, huge deal. But secondly, the other downside, besides the tax implications, is the fact that the tax benefits that were had by having the money in there, they're all gone all of a sudden because you pulled them out. So you don't have any kind of tax deferred growth anymore.
The second option, obviously, goes to your spouse. And if it goes to your spouse, they can make it their own IRA, and then they follow underneath their own RMD regs, regulations. So, I mean, I think that's the kind of the step two is like, hey, if I pass away, my retirement plans become my wife's. But when we were talking about the kids piece, right? So on December 31st, if you haven't broken up the asset by that December 31st of the year following, then you're going to follow under one of two scenarios, either the previous person's RMDs, or you're going to follow underneath the oldest sibling's beneficiary date of birth as RMD scheduling. So that's kind of an interesting scenario. So there's a lot of moving parts inside inheriting IRAs. So taking some action, and it seems like, Seth, if you died today and a year and a half later, you haven't split up the assets.
Scenario? I just realized I don't want to die today.
Okay, good. So, but I mean, when you think about it, year and a half it seems like a long time. But after someone passes away,
there's a lot going on.
There's so much going on. That seems like a breath of air in time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That year, I mean, think about how quickly the year flies by for us now. And then you add, I mean, really, it's trauma. into a situation. And there's so much to deal with if you're involved in any kind of estate settlement. I mean, it's like sometimes this is the last thing that people, for one, want to think about. Secondly, or even can, really deal with.
Yeah,
So,
it's a major emotional struggle, and then you got family members and heirs and doing paperwork and making sure everyone gets their paperwork in, and there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work when you're dealing with a loss and funerals and all the complications around that. It's a lot of work, and it's a year and a half, and honestly, it could be just a year. I mean, and that goes quick. So, I think there's a couple things inside this, right? I mean, the whole concept of what we're talking about is the stretch IRA piece. Saying kids, hey, take your money out over time, break up the tax bite, take a little bit every year, follow the RMDs, or just even if you're not under the RMD, your parents' RMDs, which are a little bit heavier in how much you take out, but if you can spread it out over a longer period of time, great. I actually had a client who knew that their child would want money pretty much right away. And they were concerned because they had a lot of IRA money and they didn't want them to create kind of that tax suicide event where they just take a bunch of money out and so forth. And what they did was they actually went out and they bought a simple $100,000 life insurance policy with their IRA funds. So they were taking money out with the...
Yeah, paying the tax on when it came out.
Yeah, they have to take it out anyways. Did that, and then they just said, I'm going to put this much money aside. I'm going to buy a simple life insurance. They were very healthy and so forth. But just to give the child a big chunk of change so they wouldn't be rushing to take the IRA money out. I thought that was a great idea.
And what's cool about that, too, is the fact that when that death policy, when that life insurance policy paid, that was all tax-free income coming.
Right.
So it was paid, so you paid the premiums with paying some taxes on the distributions, but then it was a total tax-free deal for the kids. Yeah.
And it was good. I mean, it was a nice way, and, they were right. I mean, it's the child's not going to rush to liquidate all sorts of funds that are going to create taxes, and maybe they start out well and start to stretch and get used to and comfortable with that. Because I think what I see most of the time is when kids inherit money, it's like it just flies out the window.
Yeah. So, guys, let's talk about just kind of the procedure of what happens. So, Ben, if you have a client that comes in and they have an IRA with you and they pass away, you're going to have kids in the situation. Those kids would open up what we call a beneficiary IRA. And then they have some choices, don't they, when it comes to the money there.
I mean, they can take it out of a lump sum.
They can take it all out all at once, like, boom, I can take it all at once.
Right.
Like you're saying earlier, tax suicide. Or they can say...
they can do the 5-year rule.
Yeah, and that 5-year rule basically says that they have to withdraw the entire contract over the 5-year period. So they can do they can do all of it at once, crazy. Right. 2, they can take it out over 5 years. And I guess it really depends upon the amounts and all. But the number 3 option that they have is they can start taking a regular RMD based upon the child's birth date. So
now I've seen where people have retired, were inheriting an IRA, and use the 5-year rule to say when their income turned off. I think it was like they had 3 years left. They were like, well, I'll take that money out over those 3 years.
Yeah.
And that basically took them from 62 to 65. They took that out.
Yeah,
and just to break,
that's some neat planning.
Some clever planning inside some of this stuff. So knowing these rules and how they work is pretty functional and helpful. I think one of the newer things, John, you have this article here back from April 2018. This is kind of a newer method, and I've come across this with some attorneys, and it's funny because I don't know how tested this is inside the court system, because I remember having a conversation with an attorney, but doing stretch IRAs through a trust is kind of a new technique or a newer technique. And the reason people are doing this is ultimately to force their kids, or basically say, hey, listen, you're going to take this money out, but you're going to take it out over time because that's the responsible thing to do. It's kind of parenting from the grave a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like a trust will dictate kind of how that passes, that money comes out. Because we've all seen the kid that gets the money at 22 years old and so out buying cars and this and that and not saving the money for what it's intended for.
Oh, 22 years old. I've seen it at 70. I've seen people inherit, go from having nothing and just making it and inheriting a ton of money and then just saying, it doesn't matter anymore, I'll just spend it all.
But you hope the wisdom of age over time will give
you do
better choices when it comes to money.
But I think we've all seen a little bit of it all and across the board. And I think, some of these things are relevant to the trust is helpful. I think the trust is helpful to let people know, listen, this money needs to be taken out properly, and we don't want to pay taxes any more than we have to.
Correct.
So, but I don't know how tried and tested this is in the court system, but I do know it is a practice that's becoming much more common over the last few years. I think I ran into this about 3 or 4 years ago for the first time.
I would say another solution in there that we've taken a real close look at as well as different heirs have different needs. I think you mentioned that earlier, just the kid that you knew was going to spend the money. How do you plan around that? An annuity can actually be one of those pieces that has the ability to kind of turn into a trust, so to speak, in the way that it will actually distribute upon death,
like a stream of income, Seth. You're kind of talking about, so it pays it out.
A stream of limited. It will. Yeah, it's like an irreversible, irrevocable. It's like an irrevocable trust.
I can't get out more next year because I need more, but you just get your same set amount.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I actually had a scenario where a client had done an irrevocable beneficiary distribution. I don't even recall it. Don't even remember it. And but it's this very specific, intentional, effort that someone has to do to put that limitation on it.
There has to be a lot of conversation about that before that's done.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just been it was so long they passed away. I didn't remember it. I mean, I don't think I didn't even know I had done it for anybody before. But it can be done. It can be locked up and distributed. Boy, I'll tell you, they weren't happy. But you know what? The parent was concerned for their child, and what are you going to say?
Hey, it's their money, right?
Yeah, it's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. And so, but I mean, they really wanted that. I think what's interesting about that kind of distribution, which says a lot, it just says some people are going to take it as a negative, like you don't trust me on how to handle the money, or I really needed the money, or whatever. But there's a lot of love inside a decision like that. I think we forget the other side of that piece where someone says, I love you so much. I just want to make sure that no matter what, you could be going through a hard time or this, that, the other thing, but this money will be there for a period of time for you no matter what.
Yeah. And, in instant lump sums of money, as we've talked about before, we've done shows on this, instant lump sums of money that show up that you haven't earned can destroy someone. Yeah. And it can destroy, you could be 18 years old, you could be 30, you could be 50, and a big lump sum of money dropped in your lap can not be a good thing for you in your life. And that sounds kind of weird, and you think, well, boy, it would be a good thing for me, but, would it be? It's just a question of how would I use that? Would I use it for others? Would I use it for just in the proper way?
Right. I remember that those people they love their child quite a bit, and I mean that was a big decision. I can only imagine for them to make that. I know it wasn't their entire assets; it was a significant portion of it. But creating that piece, I mean, it does say, "Hey, listen, we really want to care for you longer than just that." That small period of time. Here's a lump sum and whatever. It's like every year there's a reminder of that check coming through. That's pretty cool.
I think it's amazing that they get left anything. I mean, 44% of us out there are saying, nah, I'm going to spend it all. The fact that there was anything that came over, hey, more power to you. I think sometimes it's just being grateful for what it is that we've been given is a practice. We all get an opportunity to remember that. And but it is interesting how within a family sometimes people getting treated differently, right? Based off of how they react and they work with money. That can definitely be one of the factors that is really hard for, one of the siblings to get treated differently than one of the other siblings, and maybe get left less, maybe get left money in a way that has some constraints on it. But either way, it's nice to know that there's just options. I mean, it's there. If you think about what it is that you have, think about what's your exit strategy. We talk about that a lot. Anytime that we're looking at, any kind of an investment, it's like, well, what is the exit strategy here? Why? How long are we holding on to this? How are we going to distribute this? And what's the next purpose of this?
Yeah, purpose is entirely the focus of almost every investment. Like, what are you trying to accomplish on distribution, return, time horizon, all those pieces that come into play? If that investment is not going to meet the purpose that you're trying to accomplish in this piece, you really got to. I think there's too many financial people out there in this world, and that don't have. There's good investments, right? And then at the end of the day, it's not that they're trying to do something wrong. It's just that they're not focusing on the purpose or what you're trying to accomplish inside all of that.
You've been listening to Money on Tap. We've been having a lot of fun talking about best way to inherit an IRA, and there's all sorts of we've all weighed in on the facts here, folks, of $30 trillion being passed from one generation to the next, and what is that going to look like, and having an understanding around the distribution and how to treat those distributions. It's a huge part of planning, and should be at least a conversation that you have either just with yourself about what is the intention for those monies that you've accumulated. So we appreciate you joining us here at Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Have a great week, folks.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.